Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt, and we're here to help you discover your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. We're on 9:30 a.m. The Answer podcasts, and later we'll be on talklawradio.com, also on YouTube, and you can subscribe to that channel and get notifications when a new video is posted. You can also find us on Facebook Live. Today we're talking about mediation with Toni O'Brien, who is a certified mediator. Her business is called Restoration Mediation in San Antonio, Texas. Toni mediates with families who are in distress due to illness or death. You can learn more about Toni O'Brien and Restoration Mediation by emailing her at toni@restorationmediation.com. Toni, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
We talked about your background and your work history, a little bit about your faith. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Now I want to talk about the business. So you had to get certified. Just for listeners that don't know what process that is, what did you have to do to get certified?
So you have to train with someone who meets the requirements to train, and it's usually face-to-face. It's in person, but I started right before COVID.
Okay.
So kind of made a mess of things. So we ended up doing it all online. My teacher actually was in Germany, so it worked out well for her because she usually came and did
wow.
So it worked out well for her. But it's a 6-week, I think, course for the basics, and it's a lot of reading. But most of the time you spend with the class is doing actual mediations, so she can kind of give you feedback.
Practicing.
Practicing. Yeah. So that was a little intimidating because I'm great at doing a lot of book work. I wasn't expecting to do so many mediations and then have the whole class kind of give you feedback. Mm-hmm. That was a little disconcerting. But it worked out really well and was good. It helped me to really figure out how I want it to move. A lot of people, do the full mediation, but I've really narrowed down what I want to work with. Yeah. Yeah.
And you wanted to narrow it down to elder law clients.
Pretty much. I took the second course on divorce, family relations, and then domestic abuse, because I just really felt like it's you never can know too much. But going through that, I realized I really don't want to get into the middle of custody battles. It's heartbreaking, and it's a lot of emotional stress, and so. And having watched for 5 years, the devastation on the elderly and on their family of when they get sick and they have, they don't know what to do with their money, and they start fighting with each other. And often the elderly parent is silent during the fighting between the kids because they don't want to take sides, but it diminishes their health. You can watch them deteriorate as the fight goes on. And so I thought, I really want to help families figure out resolutions.
Yeah, I see those too. But it reminds me of a continuing education seminar I went to. There was a probate litigator talking about litigation and how estate planning attorneys can do things to help prevent litigation. And he said he was talking to a friend who did divorce and child custody, and he was telling the guy, "You have it so easy. Your client probably hated his spouse for, 10, 20 years. my client has hated his brother for 40, 50 years.
Yes.
He had a client who told his brother, "You made your bed when you were 4." And he was like, "Really? I mean, not just children, but almost babies, and you're holding a grudge for that since then?" So you probably seen that type of attitude.
I do. And it always amazes me. First, my question is, well, if you're already mad, how are we going to come to any kind of resolution? Because mediation is, everybody has to come to the table willing to make some kind of an agreement, understanding that they're not going to get everything they want. They often think that's the rule, but that I'm neutral, so I can't really guide them one way or the other. But they have to be willing to compromise. And when you already have this hate fest thing going on, it's hard to figure out where you're going to compromise. So often I will just have them take a step back and figure out, okay, are you willing to communicate with this person you've been feuding with for however many years to do the greater good and find a resolution to this problem? Probably 7 out of 10 say yeah. Some just want to be mad, and they're not ever going to want to stop.
Well, I was going to ask you about your strategies, and that sounds like one of them.
Yeah, just make them take a step back, because, I think lots of times people think mediation is about me as the mediator taking their side and kind of beating up the other side until they come to their senses. And it's really not that. It's really being neutral, but helping guide them to some realistic ideas, that you may want the entire thing, but you're only really going to come here. What's your bottom line resolution? What's the thing that you won't give up?
Well, it's easy to do that with money, if the dispute is about money. But what if it's about something else, like power, control, or something like that?
One of the questions that I have asked most recently in a situation where one of the siblings wanted to be power of attorney. So one of the questions I ask is, so when was the last time you had an overdraft charge? And how often does it happen? And then I explain to them that their duty is much greater to the person they're being an agent for than it is to their own bank account. And if they can't control their own bank account, they might not want to take on the obligation and the liability of controlling someone else's.
Yeah.
So if you approach it as, I'm really trying to protect you, often they'll hear you, and then so I've had to have that conversation. And the same thing with medical, you don't want somebody in that's going to be cowed by the medical profession, because they can be intimidating.
I hear you. No, I tell people that all the time, that you want somebody who will confront physicians and nurses and go find them, when they're not showing up.
Right, and advocate. Not every surgery is necessary, not every medication is necessary, and so figure, who is going to be able to stand up. And then once we kind of get that worked out, then we, I would guess probably the first 20 minutes is them kind of airing their anger, a lot of venting. There's rules in place. They can't swear, they can't get violent, they can't, yell. But there's probably that time when they vent. And then once we get past that, we can really make things work.
Okay. Yeah, those are some good strategies. How do people come to know about your service?
I have, I've been so blessed in this community. I've known a lot of attorneys, and I also work, I don't know if you know Esther Pipoli. She works with loss of life advocates.
Yeah, I've heard of her, yeah.
Yeah. So she and she actually feeds a fair amount of business to me, but I also do advocacy for her. So if we have a family that is dealing with death or loss of any kind, job or whatever, There may be some things that we can do, help get a hold of their employers if they're needing workers' comp or disability, and help get them on the programs that they need. So I work a lot with her doing advocacy, but then when it gets past the advocacy point, then I go into the mediation.
Okay. Do you see any common characteristics of families that need some help resolving disputes?
I think misinformation is the common thing. You know, they take a position and communicate this idea, and it's wrong. You know, it's just wrong information.
Yeah.
You know, for example, you know, there's so much misinformation about Medicaid and what it will and what it won't do, how it works and how it won't work, and because they read it on the internet. And so you have to clarify a lot of the misinformation. Then once you narrow that down and they realize what they're dealing with, it helps them move past, you know, what they thought they knew, and figure out what's real.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. So I wanted to mention to the listeners, let me take a break from mediation just for a second and talk about No Shave November, the fact that I'm growing a beard that isn't fully grown yet. I'm doing it for men's health. So I told my wife that it wasn't going to be for forever, but I definitely wanted to grow out my goatee again. I didn't like it when my chin was without its fur, so I'm going to work on that. So if you want to bring awareness to men's health, check out my Movember link on Facebook. Okay, so we've got to take another break. When we come back, we'll be talking more about mediation, some case studies, types of disputes, how to come to a resolution when a family member is digging in. So stay tuned.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.